This is simply one of the most satisfying experiences you'll ever have in photography. And I gotta tell you, watching the print come up in the developer, it never gets old. In this video, I'm gonna explain the black and white printing process and show you exactly how easy it actually is. In fact, anyone can do it, even if you are on a tight budget. And the really cool part is you only need a few things to actually do this. The first being a dark room. And it's pretty obvious, but that's why they call it a dark room. Now, over the years, I've printed in kitchens, bathrooms, and even attics, all with great results. Now, you don't need a ton of room for this or a dedicated space, but what I would say is that you definitely need a love for photography and a desire or an itch to create a piece of artwork from one of your negatives. So you wanna have a wet side and a dry side, or a space for your chemicals and a space for your photo paper and enlarging equipment. Except for my occasional cup of coffee.
Hey, no eating or drinking in the darkroom.
It's my darkroom. Because you don't want chemicals and liquids and things getting on your paper, on your enlarger. It's just gonna be a mess. So a long time ago, I was developing film in a friend's kitchen, and I had the fixer mixed up and it wasn't labeled. It was in an empty milk gallon jug. And my other buddy came over, and it was really hot outside, and he came over and he was like, "Oh, I'm really thirsty." And he grabbed it and he just took a big swig of the fixer. And I just sat there looking kind of stunned as he spit it out. And now I've seen this particular guy drink a lot worse things than that, but he was okay. Like, I don't think he actually swallowed any of it. But point being is, you want to have things labeled. Don't just leave chemicals laying around. But anyway, back to the darkroom stuff. Having a darkroom is going to allow you to do this process. So once you have a darkroom where you can set things up, you will need a way to turn your negatives into positives. Now, one way to do this is with a photo enlarger, and what this does is it projects light through the negative down onto photosensitive paper. Now, if you want to enlarge the image, you raise the enlarger head up. If you want to make the image smaller, you lower the enlarger head down. So the enlarger will have what's called a negative carrier, and you're gonna put your negative in the carrier and then insert it under the light source in the enlarger. And then the lens is going to focus it to make it sharp onto your paper, and the lens works much like the lens in your camera. Now, you can even print without an enlarger. This is more for bigger negatives, say from large format, or you can even print out digital negatives. And what you do here is contact print. And so you can either use a plate of glass or a contact printing frame to directly put the negative and paper in contact and then expose light over the top of that. Edward Weston's most iconic images were made with just a simple contact printing method and a single light bulb. Next, we have the photo paper. So photo paper works very similar to film. So there's an emulsion coated on the paper instead of a film base that's light sensitive. Wherever light hits the emulsion, it positively charges it. So what we're doing is taking the negative and flipping it back into a positive. And while you're making the print exposure, you have to have all the normal lights off, but what you can do to help you see is use what's called a safe light. These are the red-orange lights you see in the darkroom in like movies, or scary movies, or creeper movies usually, for whatever reason.
Right, enlarging.
These are the safe lights. So most darkroom printing papers are what's called orthochromatic. This simply means that they are sensitive to most of the light spectrum except for that red-orange part. So you can have the light sensitive paper out in that dim red light for a certain amount of time because they are less sensitive to that spectrum of light. And then the only other equipment you really need is a set of trays and some simple chemicals to make your creative vision and print come to life. Now, these chemicals are relatively cheap, but if you want to save even more money, you can mix your own formulas, and I do have a free darkroom formula ebook in the description. So after the negative is exposed onto the printing paper, the next step is to run it through a series of chemicals, the first one being a developer. Now the developer takes those charged areas of the print that were charged by the light and it turns those areas into metallic silver. So basically, the more exposure that or charge that area got, the more developed silver, the darker the area in the print. Then areas that are not exposed do not develop, and they leave the paper white. What this does is it creates a grayscale image. Areas with more exposure creates like a gray to a black. Areas with less exposure creates a gray to a white, making a gradient across the whole print, thus creating your black and white print. After you develop the print, you need to put it in a stop bath, and this is basically usually an acidic solution that neutralizes the alkalinity of the developer, and it just stops the development process. Usually this is a 15-30 second, very simple, quick bath. Then you have one more chemical bath, which is the fixer. And what the fixer does, it removes any remaining sensitive areas in the emulsion. This is so the emulsion will no longer have any reaction to light when you turn the lights on, making it safe to do so, and you can enjoy the print in the light. Then all you have to do is wash the remaining fix out of the print and then hang it to dry. So though it might seem complicated at first glance, the black and white printing process really is a very, very simple process. Now, 15 to 20 years ago, most people just assumed film was dying. It was wild because you could get multiple darkrooms in one day if you wanted, if you just watched Craigslist or even on eBay, local marketplaces. Everybody was just giving their darkrooms away. Now, there has been a huge resurgence in film and interest in darkroom printing, but if you keep your eyes peeled, you can still find free whole darkroom setups. You can find really good deals on a lot of stuff with a little bit of patience. And if you enjoyed this video on how darkroom printing works, I think you will really love this one on making your first darkroom print.